Elyce Monet here. I'm back again in our boundaries series, and I'm going to talk today about the spiritual boundary. Now, this happens to be my favorite. And first, let's define spiritual boundary, okay? The spiritual is all about the heart center. That's why it's my favorite, right? So let me ask a question. How deeply can you love from your heart? Do you know? I'm not talking giving to get. I'm not talking reciprocal love. I'm talking about your openness to all that is. Your openness of your heart to the man in the gutter, to the man in prison or the woman in prison, to the little child who has a snotty nose and a bad attitude. How open is your heart to these things? So, as we talk about the spiritual boundary, we're talking about the capacity for love. All right. So, that took me as I pondered how to explain what I believe about the heart space. It took me back to the 7 Hermetic principles. And these are the universal spiritual principles of how the world works in truth, not how it works out there in the world, but in truth from the connection to all that is. Okay? So I'm going to talk to you about those right now. The first is the principle of mentalism. And we touched on this in the mental plane about mental boundaries. And that is the all that is, the divine source, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, energy, the universe, spirit. All of those are the same term for what I'm talking about. All that exists is what we call the all is mind. And that's the heart mind that I spoke about earlier in our series. The heart mind is your direct connection to source, the universe, God, etc. And our thoughts, like we talked about in the mental plane, not coming from our brain, our human brain, but from our heart mind. Okay? So this is what creates our reality. Our thoughts plus our emotions create our belief system, and that's what creates our reality. And so that's the first principle, the principle of I'm responsible for my life. Nobody created it but me. All right? Nobody caused me to be or do anything. It was all my choice. And I accept full and total responsibility for every aspect of my life and every situation, good and bad. Okay? That's easier said than done. And it's a work in progress. It's an ongoing, lifelong, and even beyond this life, eternal working in our lives. All right. The second principle is the principle of correspondence. And this is one of my favorites too, because Hermes Trismegistus, isn't that a mouthful? Hermes Trismegistus was a very famous magician and philosopher with the Gnostics. And he talked about the as above, so below, as within, so without. And so here we're on that same principle. As above, think of heaven, and so below, here on earth. And the Bible corresponds with that as well. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is upon us. We are one, right? The as within, so without is the principle I discussed before, that who you are on the inside is what is magnified on the outside. Remember when I talked about lust? I told you that horrible story of what happened to me with that guy and his awful gesture toward me that showed me my state at that time. And so the correspondence is about that. Correspondence is about the as above, so below, as within, so without. Okay. So what you see out there is what's in here. All right. The third one is vibration. And that even plays more into that story of the guy that came around the corner with the gesture for me when I was in a lustful state. And that's energy vibrates. It's constantly moving and it's constantly changing. So my inner state can go from depression to bliss, just like that. My vibration can change and go out to everything that is. And it's energetic. My thoughts are energy. My heart puts out energy. We are all about frequency. Okay, you've heard that before, I'm sure. So what is your frequency? Look at that boundary for yourself. How far does your frequency go? Some people call that the auric field. That's all of your frequency. It usually goes out beyond as far as you can stretch out your arms, and sometimes even more. And we can expand that as we focus upon it. All right. The fourth principle in the Hermetic codes, which is the wisdom of the universe, the fourth principle is the principle of polarity. And this is hard to understand sometimes because this is where the paradoxes happen. Everything has a positive and a negative, kind of like a magnet. And in the positive, let's say you're totally selfless, okay? You're all about giving and sometimes overgiving, if you look at it that way. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's the same energy with a different manifestation, that being greed. So you have greed on one end and selflessness on the other. And that's the polarity. Everything has an opposite. Everything in this earth, every energy has a positive and a negative. And that's the principle of polarity. The next one is rhythm. Yeah, we can talk about music and rhythm, of course, but this is all about the flow in life. And that's where music comes from. It comes from flow, the flow of the heart, the rhythm, the sensuality, the beauty. And it brings us the cycles of life, the seasons, all of the changes and the shifts and the flow. And if we didn't have rhythm, oh Lord, where would we be? Then one you're very familiar with, that's the law. The sixth universal principle is the law of cause and effect. And that's simply whatever energy I put out is what I'm going to get back. All right. Sometimes called karma. And karma isn't negative. If I put out love, guess what I'm going to get back? Love karma. All right. Now, it's not guaranteed. At least it's not guaranteed in a certain length of time. It is guaranteed that once I put energy out, that energy will return to me. That is a guarantee. That's the principle of the universe. Okay. And then the last one, believe it or not, is gender. Everything has a masculine and a feminine. Isn't that crazy? Everything is in duality. And the biggest duality is we are both human and divine. And the goal is to bring it together and individuate it. Bring the two genders together, the two opposites together. And these things all bring us into the groundedness of ourselves. Okay. And another gender is also masculine and feminine. Everything that exists has a masculine and a feminine. I know you wouldn't think about that, but it's true. God is both masculine and feminine. We have masculine and feminine side in each and every human being. And it's sometimes I'm more masculine and it's sometimes I'm more feminine, depending on the situation. All right. But usually, if we're given a woman's body and we're a woman, we will express the feminine side. Not always true. Sometimes women take on the masculine and vice versa. Men take on the feminine. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's whatever floats your boat, I say, is okay, as long as you recognize which one you're in and how you put it out to the world. So those are the universal laws of spirituality. Now, I want to tell you, my nickname with my clients has always been the heart healer. And that's because it's all about, for me, the heart. I was put on this planet to give. And my journey has had to teach me boundaries. And there are spiritual boundaries in that too, in that I had to learn not to throw my pearls before swine, not to give my power away to those who didn't deserve it and who abused me, right? That's throwing my pearls before swine. I had to learn that lesson. It was a hard one. But all of this is all about the heart. And once again, it's an inside job. So as you contemplate your heart, open up and simply ask Spirit to come in and show you your heart. And let go of the mental plane. Don't listen to the yada, yada, yada of your ego. Listen to your heart. Listen to the all that is. Listen to your higher self. And if you don't know how to do that, call me. Go on Elyce at ElyceMonet.com and I will help you. Okay. So thank you for joining me. We'll be talking more about boundaries. And until then, I'll see you. Have a very good day and very good week. Enjoy. And also, don't forget to stay in your heart.